along. What I cannot say, you'll hear through my guitar. She told me at the bass line, and everything will be alright. She told me that the groove is mine, it will take us through the night. And where I'll go, can't explain, I'll never know. But it's beautiful, you can't take this away from me. The way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me. You can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me. I love the way it sings, all the joy that it brings. Remember skating down the road towards the park. I could never say no, you with that summer glow. The music gives me sun when winter starts. She told me at the bass line, everything will be alright. She told me that the beat is mine, it will rock us through the night. And where I go, can't explain, I'll never know. But it's beautiful, you can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me. You can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me. Hey, you can't take this away from me. The way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me. Come on, y'all. You can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me.
Yeah, it's running through me. Yo, I wear notes like coats, blues like dudes. Warmth in the rhythm, soul that glues, that bounce to my bones, jazz in my spine. The hop is my home, rap is my grind. I'm grinding on the backside of life, we dance. She threw me a chance, her hands in my pants. Actually, my pockets holding me tight. Whispering a dream I could hold in the night. Blood tight, a rhythm that's throbbing my vein. Wake up to write it on the pad, the pains. Like church, the organ will invite the tears. Like birth, the crying let you know I'm here. Held by the song that gave me a name. Dressed by the verse that gave me a claim. It's just bass in the line, safe to inhale. And if you live well, belong your years in the stay you will be. A timeless octave to play for the tree. It's rooted in every single nerve in me. The nerve of he who ignores the key. And music that opens the mind to be free. Whenever your hot head, it pours you a breeze. Beneath the clouds, you allowed to see. In clarity, through harmony. Someone harming me, that won't be done. I stand protected by the laws of fun. I am perfected through the rhymes of run. Walk it this way and leave the party stunned. This music, it launched me with no aim. I've landed on some plane. Where I am, I can't explain or never know, but it's beautiful. So
you can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me.
come on, y'all.
You can't take this away from me. Oh, the way I hear the melody, the waves bring clarity, running through me.
Give me that paper cut. I won't give you up. So give me that paper cut. Give me that paper cut. Give me that, give me that. Give me that paper cut. Give me that, give me that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dept Trends 2022, the annual event where we look at the biggest and most exciting trends for the year ahead. My name is Emma Santangelo, and I'll be your host today. I'm the strategy director at Dept in the Netherlands. So before we get started, I wanted to just say, for all of you who are going to be watching our event on the Desktop Trends event today, please have fun in there. There's a lot of fun stuff to explore, from content to Dept FM. You can also shop our latest Dept apparel drop in there as well. And as we're going through the talks today, please feel free to leave your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll try to get through them as we move through our talks. Before we get started, I also want to introduce our co-host, Max Pinas, Executive Creative Director at Dept. Hey, Max, how are you?
Hi, Emma. I'm great. And I'd like to share you why. I think perhaps this is the most fun moment in the year. And it is, we can look forward. We can look towards trends that we foresee. Some are sort of quite out there and some are already here today. So I always like to say, the future is here and finally I'm home. And I'm so glad I can share it with you.
Same here. Let's get started.
So to kick it all off, we're going to do 5 trends. And the first trend is about the Metaverse. Start the clip.
Like the internet, mobile technology, and social media, the virtual metaverse is about to take off as the new age for human interaction. The metaverse is interesting, meaningful, and immersive. It's becoming a focal point for brands looking to establish a relationship with today's newest generations. Within the metaverse, NFTs provide unique, one-of-a-kind ownership for digital art and fashion, music performances, and digital collectibles, providing a decentralized platform for brands and individuals to monetize and engage on a whole new level. In the future, the metaverse and NFTs will open up a world of possibilities, paving the way for real economies and engaging audiences all over the globe.
So wow, welcome at the moon. So I'm going to talk to you about the Metaverse, NFTs, and it's really something exciting. It's something that is happening for the past year. It's becoming sort of mainstream. And my story is about what impact, what trend do we see the coming year, and what you could do with it. So the Metaverse and NFTs, it's all about virtualization. And we think it's a game changer when it comes to engaging, connecting, and creating value to people. So first of all, it's a huge opportunity. Virtual worlds and goods are growing exponentially. And if you look at where we come from, or where we are right now, it's Web 2.0. So Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Google, and most brands, they are still in this Web 2.0 phase. And if you ask me, what is that? Well, it's about websites, it's apps, it's social media, it's gaming. It's the place we all know right now. So what is that difference between that and Web 3.0? Well, if you look at the early movers, it's like Epic, it's Roblox, it's high fashion brands like Gucci or Balenciaga and others. And they are all exploring sort of the third version of the internet, with virtualized and decentralized experiences and tech. So the main things that we see happening there, it's about Metaverse, it's about crypto, NFT, and also that decentralized blockchain that is sort of connecting all that together. The journey that we are at right now is from 2 to 3. So I want to take you on a small journey of the steps that we're currently already seeing and the things that are already developing from 2 to 3. So first, we're looking at virtual content, like Coldplay did together with BMW to introduce a new lineup from their brand. Or high-end fashion. So this is an example from Gucci in Gucci Garden, where they sort of produced art and made it available through an NFT. Or play to earn. It's really interesting, but there is a big chunk of people in the world now playing to earn money. Or the digital possessions, or how we like to call them, NFTs. NFTs sort of are taking the world by storm. I will get back to that later, and my friend Brandon will also explain a lot more about it.
Okay, Aquaman down.
Yeah, Aquaman down. And the real strange thing is, that was Captain America saying that. And for a bit nerds among us, there's a mixture between IP there. Because it's, on the one hand, it's DC, and on the other hand, it is Marvel. So in this new virtual worlds, in this metaverse, suddenly brands, IP is mixed amongst each other, and it was not conceivable before, right? You would never see the one in the other. But now it's happening, and it's all happening due to the metaverse. If you look at virtual possessions, NFTs have sort of the same features as baseball or Pokemon cards. It's a digital, unique possession you can have. And if you think about it, it sort of feels like the same, right? Like a baseball card. However, there is a massive difference. It can do so much more. And that's because of the digital genes they have. So you can suddenly have royalties, or have video, or have 3D, or do all these things that makes it interesting to today's generations. Click, yes. So total revenue in digital possessions last year in NFT has grown by 1,000%. So in 2020, it was about 250 million. Now it's 20 billion. So that's insane, right? But it also shows you how much interest is out there. Click. Also interesting to me is the size. So 100 billion in virtual goods in 2021. 3 billion people are playing games at this moment in the world. And just as a figure, that's about a tenfold of all the entire movie industry combined. So digital is radically transforming society, businesses, and people's behavior. No, virtual is actually doing that. So, to wrap it all up, don't forget that the metaverse is still ultimately populated by real people. So my advice to brands is find new ways to sort, to get on board, because you don't want to wake up one day and wonder where everybody went. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Max. The metaverse, there's so much to talk about, and I think that was a great intro to the rest of the things which we'll be talking about today. So before we get into the next thing, we want to talk a little bit more about NFTs and cryptocurrency, and we'll look at a quick clip before we talk to our next speaker.
words. It's a way
I don't
for
think anyone else can
traditional
hear the
brands
sound,
to
so just
connect with
imagine a
newer
nice robot
generations
British voice
and
right now
establish
reading off
long-term
all these subtitles to
relationships
you.
on a personal level. Brands are at a crossroads in the coming year, deciding whether to pursue these exciting spaces of digital possessions, decentralized ownership, and the reinvention of monetary systems. It will be difficult to comprehend everything that these technologies and their associated economies have to offer. Entering this new decentralized world will undoubtedly reveal who is falling behind and who is poised to take the lead during this exciting evolution into Web 3.0.
All right, a lot to unpack there. So we're going to turn over to Brandon, who is the director of web at Rocket Insights, which is part of Dept.
Okay.
And joining us from the US. Can you hear
Hopefully
me?
people can hear me. Seems like we have some audio issues, but we'll try to get through this. So I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into where we're seeing this headed. Okay, looks like it's working. So we've seen the NFT gold rush, which really started with a lot of attention around NBA Top Shot early last spring. And a big reason for that is because it brought a ton of money in sales volume. Now that's cooled off a little bit since that peak, but does that mean that NFTs are cooling off? It doesn't seem like it. OpenSea, which is the largest marketplace for selling and reselling NFTs, just had or is currently having their largest month ever in terms of sales volume. I updated this graphic last night when they just crossed over the $4 billion US monthly sales volume threshold, which is a new record. So basically, this comes from a research report, but most people in crypto agreed that all the current NFTs will go to a value of 0, which is a bit bleak. But in terms of the new asset class that NFTs represent and the technology that it brings to the table, it's here to stay. There's a lot more to do with it. We're just seeing the early days of it all. Community and transparency is one of the reasons why this is difficult for most people. They come to this table saying, I want to make some NFTs. Let's make some money. With skipping over this middle piece, which is that this is not just a new product to sell. This is a new business that you have to run, right? It's a new asset class. It's not, images aren't just new products to sell. We might be seeing that right now because of a bit of a hype curve, but that's not the longevity of it all. You need to have a roadmap. What is that NFT going to do for that customer in the near future? In the long-term future, these are long-living assets, and you need to think about these roadmaps beyond just a few months. You also have to have an actual community. Twitter is not enough. Right now, we see Telegram and Discord being the two elements of where we're going to have most of our community. And you have to keep in mind, those members are on all the time. So this is something you have to manage, again, like a real business. Then now we're starting to see, how do we create our own token? If NFTs represent the tip of the iceberg in crypto, then creating your own token would be somewhere underneath that big iceberg. There's a lot to it, but we've still seen that same kind of excitement. Let's create a token. Let's make some money. And there's not enough of that meat substance in the middle. And what is that? Well, most of it is tokenomics, where you have the economics of how does that token actually work in your system, in your platform. You have to think of things like, what is the total token supply? How many am I actually going to create? Do I mint more over time? Is it inflationary versus deflationary? Where are these things going? Are there vesting schedules, etc.? Just like a real business. Then you have to think about how the actual token is going to work. And that's a combination of game theory and economics. Is this a cooperative game or a non-cooperative game? And how do we figure out where these marginal contributions are going to happen? And am I going to run out of these tokens? Is it going to last forever? How do we tweak this stuff? It's a lot. Then there's regulation. You have to figure out, is my token going to draw the ire of some kind of regulatory body in the future? That regulation isn't here today, but it's coming. There's a lot of these governing bodies out there. And that's going to happen this year and next year as well. I think a lot of people are ahead of this who have these long-term projects and are doing this properly, but it's a big consideration. And just overall, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's normal to feel lost. It's still very early in this space. We do this a lot here. We can help you get through it. We can help you understand it all, kind of be your launch pad, so to speak, in the crypto space. But yeah, that's the current landscape for where we think crypto's headed this year, especially around NFTs. I think I'll pass the mic back to the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Brandon. Really good stuff. So let's open it up and have some discussion. And I'm going to start with you, Max. So all of this is incredibly connected, as we know. So I'm sure this will be quite a rich discussion. And keep your comments and questions coming in the chat as well. But so in the metaverse, right, everything is kind of blurry: reality, digital reality, games, experiences, hanging out, concerts, special events, new ways to connect. What are the biggest opportunities and biggest takeaways for you, Max, that we can take from us with the metaverse?
Yeah, so I think we are still at the beginning. That's kind of obvious. But if you look at the large gaming platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, they are doing already a lot of things that are sort of the first steps into that metaverse. And at the same time, I think you saw the news, Facebook renamed itself to Meta. And they are currently building out quite a lot of new technology to actually be in that metaverse and to fitness, to discuss, to have entertainment or to learn and educate yourself. And these are only just a couple of examples of businesses getting into this domain. And last example I want to sort of talk about is that Microsoft just recently bought Activision Blizzard for 68 billion. So it just shows you like this is literally the new frontier for big tech and also gaming to step into.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there are some naysayers out there, as even when the internet came out, so many years ago, people were saying, why do we need this, right? So what would you say to brands or businesses or even people that are a bit hesitant to join the metaverse? Is there anything advice you would give or kind of things you might say to get them on board?
Yeah, so I get it. It's a new technology. It's the same like in the beginning, like on mobile, nobody would buy anything, right? Because it's on a small screen. And social media, it's just to post pictures of your dog. And I think we are sort of at the same moment right now. And it would be good to just start exploring new opportunities and ways to engage with the audience. It will take quite some effort to go to this multi-dimensional world. And it can actually help you to start now and get the advantages later. So I would just advise, do a small test or prototype and just start fiddling around and see if it's something for your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I have a question for Brandon about crypto. So everyone who's been watching the news lately, we all know there's been a pretty big crash, especially in the last few days even.
Oh, yeah.
But really since November, dropping with Ethereum and Bitcoin almost 40%, if I'm not wrong. So what's happening there? Is there a reason to be concerned, or what would you say to people?
I would not be concerned. There's a fun anecdote that someone told once that in the early days of the US equities market, it was incredibly volatile from civil war and these recessions and crashes. And so it looked really spiky like that. And over time, the economy is stabilized, and we're seeing the same thing in crypto right now. There's a lot of institutional investment. There's $3 trillion invested in the space. So it's not going to go away. It's not going to pop like a typical bubble would. It's a very secured bubble from a capital standpoint. That said, there's a lot of stuff in play right now. Pandemic, interest rates going up. What is the future for crypto? Are all these things Ponzi schemes or not? There's a lot of different concerns. However, what we're seeing is really just early days of a brand new market. So it is going to be volatile for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those comparisons. And I have a question from Sinead actually for you, Brandon, from the audience. So she wants to know, are NFTs compatible with this whole sustainability movement and even B Corp, as their generation and sale uses a lot of energy? What would you say there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely is actually. So this is a big concern for the original blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum because they're based on proof of work. Ethereum is going to move to what's called proof of stake. It'll be much more energy efficient in the future, in the near future as well. And pretty much all their competitors are also using that same proof of stake model that is energy efficient. So in terms of the cost of NFTs, in terms of that impact on the environment, that is going to continue to go down. Right now, what we're seeing is the combination of bad timing. Ethereum was going to move to that anyway. It's just that NFTs got really popular before they had a chance to do so. So they get a lot of flack for being environmentally unsound. But you don't actually have to buy your NFT on Ethereum. There are other marketplaces and other blockchains that support NFTs. So that's up to you as the buyer. Nice.
All right, bigger question for both of you guys, just kind of a discussion point. This whole Web 3.0 thing, again, kind of new ground in a lot of ways. It preaches a lot about community, really, and also about privacy at the same time. So are those two really at odds, or is there a world in which those can work together and Web 3.0 can really be the platform on which they converge?
You want to start there, Max, and I'll pass to you?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I actually do think they're at odds. I think that the privacy conception or privacy mantra that you hear a lot in crypto is early days mentality. We can do all this stuff without having a centralized system. We can do this stuff privately. But the reality of it is we actually can't do a lot of that stuff privately. You can't have communities when everyone's private. Otherwise, you end up with something like 4chan, which is just a breeding ground for monsters. So you have to have some kind of tie-ins to associate these digital wallets, these digital representations that's typically private, with an online identity of some kind. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year and next year. And on top of that, it's going to be required from a regulation standpoint. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And if you paid any attention the past few years, digital can be used for good, but not always, right? And I think we'll see similar developments like we see in normal society, because I really believe that if we go into this domain, it will look way more like we are used to society right now. So we will also have to have common grounds. We have to have some form of rules. We have to have ways of to be have a way to be a bit civilized. But at the other hand, that what Brandon already is referring to, if it's really anonymous, then you can't do it. So we need to look at this whole new digital domain and this moving in toward this space, that we will definitely need to rethink how we would approach this. And I think it will look way more like the real world than we think right now.
Absolutely. And I feel like another thing with Web 3.0 is it's really asking consumers and users to be more active, right, in the space, whereas Web 2.0 was maybe a bit more kind of a one-way give and take street. So do you guys agree with that? Or, you know, what are kind of the expectations now, or maybe the opportunities or possibilities for people actually using, you know, Web 3.0 as really an interactive and kind of active platform?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? We have these new internet communities with a shared goal in mind, a shared bank account, a shared vision, whatever the product is, the token does, the NFT project is. There's a bunch of different things out there, but now we have an opportunity to play a larger role in these larger projects, and those projects can grow. So you kind of see all this hype around getting in early and being a promoter of that. So not only is this internet community running the project, they're also promoting the project, which is exactly what we want. That's what makes all this stuff so fun right now, and it's in this nascent stage. But as Max said, we need to have some kind of rules around this and kind of some civilized way to operate these things, because right now it is just a Wild West landscape.
So who's going to be kind of starting to put those rules in place, or, you know, who should be? Maybe are two separate questions, but what are your thoughts on that?
This is okay. Well, I'm definitely going to say not big tech. I would say that the internet as a whole tends to work itself out. I mean, if you looked at the history of Reddit, and people like Aaron Schwartz, rest in peace, who created Reddit, they are the people who drive the internet in the right direction and make it a fun place to be and a civilized place to be. So I think the community will work itself out, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. Hey, I have a question from Nikki. Do you think decentralization is a big factor if we are talking about the metaverse? I'll pass it after this to Brandon as well. It's an interesting question. So if you start reading into this decentralization technology, blockchain, and all these things, so the thought is really positive, right? Let's put the power to all the people. But at the same time, we also see developments that a lot of money is coming from just a couple of places. And you also see investments coming from just a couple of places and big tech. So it's an interesting development that we're seeing right now. But I do believe that if we talk about the metaverse in a stage way further down the road than today, because today people are sort of all trying to get some of the land, so to say, I think it will be a decentralized way of communicating between systems and experiences, meaning there will be not one owner. So in the end, so not now, but in the end, we will develop into a form of a decentralized place, because I think that's almost the only way to create that sort of next level experience where the digital and the physical sort of become have a same strength in experience and things that people would want to be. Because I don't think if it's just one place with one thing, people would say, yeah, I'm aboard. It would be maybe for a while, but then they would just move on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to talk about kind of personal experience within this new space, within the metaverse. You know, there's a lot of talk about digital identity, right? Which isn't necessarily a new concept at its most basic, even with social media and having a second presence online. But it's kind of taken on a new form with where we're headed. And so why is it so important right now? And actually, you know, do these digital identities that we now want to have actually have tangible value to people? Is it something that, you know, people really should want to have and should care about?
Digital, yeah. But it depends. Depends on the value you give to it. So, I think it's different for everybody. I don't want to generalize generations, but I'm going to do it for just a little bit, right? So, for example, if I look at my kids, they're 14, 16, they're Gen Zs. And for them, well, the past 2 years, they only lived online almost. And their playground is literally a Discord server and some people shouting in their headsets. So for them, a digital identity is at least as important as a physical one, because that's where they meet their friends. This is where they go to school. So filters, things digital fashion, things they can use, status symbols. It's just another way of showing who you are. And I don't think it's better. And I also don't think it's less. I just think it's an evolution in what we are moving into, and especially in the younger generations.
Brandon, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. When I was younger, I grew up in the days of AOL Instant Messenger, and we had our own screen names, and you can personalize your font and the color choice and all that. And you had to basically make someone else read your terrible font choices. And then we had MySpace, and we did the exact same thing again, except this time with music, and you had to listen to the crappy song I chose. So that was part of the personalization, right? This was like my identity online, me putting myself out there. I mean, even LiveJournal did that, Tumblr did that. We've seen this time and time again. And so to Max's point, this is maybe something you agree with or don't. It's a generational thing. But it's just what's happening right now. This is the digital identity version we're seeing today between, as Max pointed out, we've got Twitch streamers, we have people in Discord servers, and now that's bleeding over into this new landscape of this Web3 area where it's totally brand new and kind of fun.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, I got a question from the audience.
Yeah.
So somebody's asking, can you explain in layman's terms, how the hell do you buy an NFT?
Sure. There's a few steps. The first thing you have to do is, how do you acquire this cryptocurrency to buy it with in the first place? And that would go through some kind of exchange. That could be Coinbase or Binance. There's a bunch of them out there that are popular. These are centralized places. They will hold onto your wallet for you. They make the onboarding process pretty easy. I would say Coinbase is probably the easiest if you haven't gotten started. Then at that point, you have to get yourself a digital wallet for wherever that marketplace is going to be. Let's say it's OpenSea. That wallet would probably be MetaMask. That sounds scary, but it's really just a browser extension. And then it'll give you an address. And that address looks scary, but let's pretend it's an email address. And you would send from Coinbase to that wallet. Great. Now your wallet has money in it. You can go to any store where you can connect that MetaMask wallet, and you can make your purchase on that store.
Nice. All right.
It's really easy.
Everyone's doing it right now behind the scenes. They're just going and using your direction.
I just want to add to this question. I did notice also myself in my own first experiences that it's not very valued yet in the crypto domain if you talk to the people that are actually in it. But more and more you can also just connect a credit card and have a sort of a simple workaround to get to have an easier threshold. What do you see? Because I know you did some work around this, right?
We did, yeah. We created a product with Dept we brought to market for an open source project, a white label NFT platform, and it uses Circle's payment processing behind the scenes so that you can buy an NFT with a credit card. We wanted those simple e-commerce, familiar payment rails. Now, that said, that's great, and that makes that onboarding process easier for people who are not familiar with it. The very first time you have to go get cryptocurrency and put it into a wallet, it feels weird and it feels unfamiliar. But every time thereafter, it's a very fast process. So using this as a new way to interact and check out with any product on these marketplaces is going to increase, because it's actually a very, very fast way to do it. And you can have huge purchases, and there's unlocks these, reseller royalties and whatnot. So there's a lot of new business models that get opened up by simply having these digital wallets.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. There are so many possibilities. We've barely scratched the surface today, but hopefully gave you guys some good stuff to chew on and think about. Before we get into the next thing, just want to say thank you so much, Brandon, Max. That was really great.
And thank you, audience. Keep on chucking in these questions. I literally needed to say we're stopping because there are more and more coming in. But we'll try afterwards to give answers to all the questions that pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So let's move into the next chapter for today. We're going to start by talking about hyperconnectivity. And before we get to our next speaker, we're going to watch another video.
Yes. Have you tried to get out? Have you tried to bust the window or something?
I'm pretty far out in the ocean. I can't get to my cell phone. I'm talking on my Apple Watch.
Try to keep talking to me. Okay.
At a speed like never before, technology is changing how we interact, how products and services are imagined, created and delivered. It is transforming and reshaping businesses, economies and life itself. As our cities become smarter, so do our homes. As our lives become faster, so does our ability to move. As the planet raises its concerns, we find new ways to raise ours. With the demands of a modern 24-hour day, connecting with our health, our loved ones and our best friends has never been more important to us. As the demands on our businesses become greater, the way we innovate, pioneer and adapt has grown with them. With the introduction of new devices, new hardware and 5G infrastructure enabling technology to further shape our cities, homes, connections, businesses and lives, we are experiencing the next level of hyperconnectivity. Are you ready for it?
So, we're going to talk about hyperconnectivity, and just this talk is a testament to it, right? We have just Brandon, he's in Boston, people, he's in the US. And later on, Josephine, she's in Hamburg. And right now, I have Jake. Jake is our Executive Creative Director in Manchester, in the UK. And he's going to talk to you about all the things that connect us to each other. So, Jake, are you there?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. I'll start. Fantastic. Okay, guys. So today is about a little bit more of a landing into the real world environment, a little bit less than the metaverse and some of these kind of really future Web3 technologies that we talked about so far today. I mean, if you think about hyperconnectivity, I mean, just look at us right now. I mean, 2 or 3 different continents on one centralized stage in a world of metaverse. I mean, it's quite remarkable where we are. Cool. Okay, great. It's working. So let's set the scene. I mean, without going into too much detail of stuff that we've all kind of gone through over the past 2 years, it's very difficult not to take the nuances of what has happened. The world has changed enormously over the past 2 years. And the way that we connect through technology has not only accelerated, it's highlighted the importance of technology and the way in which it's utilized to support our very lives. Now, as people, that is obviously a good thing, but it's also a slightly negative thing in the fact that we have become, immensely accustomed to it. So in many ways, we're kind of desensitized to how good we have it. Now, if we think about speed, we expect things to be super, super fast. That, we have no patience for things anymore. We expect things to be delivered on time. We expect things to work, a much higher rate. And that is why speed has become an enormous factor in terms of what we expect as individuals. Connectivity, we are now connected to so many devices. We're connected to our homes, our cars, our businesses. And with that, we're now kind of hyper connected to all of the different assets in our lives that was never really possible before. Now, if we think about accessibility, the way that we now access data, we access it in much more accessible ways in terms of the pace that we can read, the pace in which we can explore, and the pace in which we can find. Now, a fourth and final factor of that, in terms of how we again have become accustomed, is also things like visibility. We now have more and more insight than ever before into our health, our nutrition, our diets, our financial activities. Visibility to us as individuals is everything. Now, to some extent, this is a bit of a bounce back trend. It's kind of like the yo-yo of the 80s in a sense, because this trend was big. And what I mean by trend was the world of Internet of Things. But if we look at how this is performing now, 16.7% of the world's population now own a sort of smart device. And owning that smart device saves us around 8 days of time throughout the year, which is quite remarkable in terms of efficiency and convenience. Now, 72 billion has been spent in IoT revenues, and that is expected to rise over the course of the next 12 months to 98 billion. So we think about a trend doesn't necessarily have to be something new or unknown, such as the metaverse. It's also trends that have happened before, yet can actually move forward once again. Now, if we think about, to some extent, why that trend could start again, what is the catalyst that sits behind that? One of the biggest shifts this year, which we're going to see, is 5G connectivity. This is going to reshape what was able to be done before, and it's going to kind of sustain everything that people wanted to achieve. For many, many years now, brands and innovators have wanted to kind of connect consumers to their products, to their brands in entirely new ways, but the infrastructure wasn't always there to do that. Now, with 5G connectivity, this provides the infrastructure for hyperconnectivity to essentially take place. Now, at this moment in time, we are exposed to huge levels of kind of connectivity, and human interaction now is kind of being deprioritized. Now, what that means is that as individuals, the key factors that play a huge part in our lives are no longer kind of touch, smell, sense. It's more around efficiency, personability, practicality, and convenience. We're building a world shaped around our own needs. Now, through the course of 2022 to 23, organizations really need to think about this in terms of how they can connect consumers to their products and brands in entirely new ways. Now, Toshiba has just announced the investment of 10 billion into a connected city that will be built solely by hyperconnectivity, IoT, and smart devices to prove that communities can run with very, very little manpower. Now, as a final reference, which is actually quite a funny one in the fact that it seems that 2 previous speeches have actually referenced the NBA, but the NBA seems to be investing a huge amount of money into technology at this moment in time. Now, they've just announced for the 2022 season that for the first time, they're going to invest more into technology than actual sports infrastructure. Now, they've invested heavily into 3 core brands, which you may be aware of, you may not. One is Nextiles, which is a wearable technology. And what this basically does, it allows them to see the movements of their players and to improve their core player dynamics through wearing their own T-shirts and technologies. Resl is a virtual training program for players going through rehab for injuries and training. And this allows players to go through virtual reality rather than having to attend on site. Uplift is an artificial intelligence technology that uses tracking to analyze performance. So what these companies are doing is investing into efficiency. They're investing into speed at an enormous rate that we've never seen before. Now, throughout this year, my big belief around this trend is that the real thrivers in this industry will be those at the intersection between innovation and connectivity. We build products and services around real life moments, and we turn some of these things that were once fantasy into technological wizardry that are now tangible. And just to end on that note, I think a really nice nuance to take away from that is, the most influential force in the world isn't necessarily connectivity, because it's been here for so long. It's imagination. It's how we use it and how we implement it. I'll pass it back over to the studio now.
Thank you so much, Jake. A lot to unpack there. Really interesting topic on hyperconnectivity. I have some really good questions for you coming up, so stay tuned. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about AI and how it plays a role in hyperconnectivity and everything that Jake just went through. So we'll watch a quick clip to get started.
Artificial intelligence is having a massive impact on human evolution. People are increasingly working alongside machines that use intelligent capabilities to augment abilities and skills. As our digital and offline realities blend in the metaverse, and our devices become more and more connected, AI helps us to make sense of it all. It contributes to the creation of online environments, as creativity will no longer be an exclusively human characteristic. It enables us to gain a better understanding of real-world problems and issues such as healthcare or sustainability by leveraging human expertise. Additionally, AI will assist us in navigating ethical dilemmas as we adopt responsible AI solutions that enable us to translate AI principles, such as fairness and transparency, into consistent practices. My voice, which you are hearing right now, in this Dept Talks 2022, is entirely created by AI. With all of these advancements, it's no surprise that this year AI will remain the most transformative technology ever created by mankind.
All right, a lot to talk about there. We're going to hand it back over to a real human, actually, to talk about AI for a moment. And I'm going to introduce Lisanne, who is our senior CRO specialist and lead insight specialist at Dept in the Amsterdam office. And she is going to talk to us, because she loves AI, on all things AI that we just heard. So we'll take it over to you, Lisanne. Lisanne, can you hear me? You're muted.
How about now?
Yes, you're there.
Oh, that's so weird. Cool. I'll restart, no problem. What I was saying is that this is the year that I believe that we'll be developing new innovations in data and intelligence at breakneck speeds. But I also believe that this is the year that we'll manage actually to start creating guardrails for these new and possibly risky innovations. Not by giving up speed and not by giving up agility or our innovative power. But what we can do is actually start creating intelligence and being responsible and understanding that it's not a zero-sum game, but really a win-win in 2022. So that's good news. And I think tapping also back into the stories of Max and Jake, we see that our offline reality blends more and more with our online one, creating a metaverse, and also our devices becoming more and more connected, using 5G, for example. But we really need to realize that in doing so, we're creating oceans and oceans of data. And also, as other types of devices become connected, what we'll also see is that we create other types of data sets. Biometrical data, geolocations, but also data on who you're meeting, for example. And like I said, this data is really fundamental in creating and also optimizing our customer journeys through that are hyper-connected and go through both our online and offline realities. Now, privacy is no longer just a legal discussion because we're creating all of this data. We're creating, like I said, data on our biometrics or on our locations. And we used to see that especially, this used to be a legal decision, but we see that the industry is really stepping up here. And there's two trends that I think are cool to highlight. First being the decentralization approach that we're also seeing here. Also relating to Web 3.0, we also see that data is becoming more and more decentralized, and basically that we're going to own our own data rather than these tech giants owning our data. In, for example, a vault. Another new innovation that I think is cool to point out is the use of so-called clean rooms. And I recently heard a very cool example of our new colleagues from the US, from Rabin, where they actually use such a clean room where you can actually transfer very sensitive data, in this case medical data, completely anonymized. So this really helps us also accelerate the speed in which we can, in fact, create more intelligence. Now, at the same time, we see that AI is adopting so fast. There's so much more, what we call low or no code AI, making it easier for everyone, also non-technical people, to actually process these tremendous amounts of data that we're creating. And that allows us to hyper automate processes, both in the real world. So, for example, a breakthrough last year was the usage of AI to actually research the spike proteins in the COVID virus, which helps to develop vaccines faster in the future. But also in our own field of practice, what AI really helps us to do is to hyper-personalize digital experiences in the blink of an eye. And we even see the rise of creative AI, automating actually the creation of digital assets. And there's even a first patent in South Africa given to an AI system last year, proving that creativity is no longer a unique human trait, really. Now, all of these innovations also, again, I said it before, call for guardrails that make sure that no damage is done. Because as we continue to use AI more and more, we're also open to possible risks like biases. And I think a recent example of that is the criticism that was raised in the UK, where an algorithm actually predicted the exam grades of students that couldn't attend their exams due to the pandemic. So also on this topic again, and it's really cool to see how AI also helps us tackle these types of topics, is that we can use these technologies to include fairness and transparency into our daily practice. So we can use AI also to detect biases. So here again, we see a win-win situation. And lastly, I would really want to stress that being innovative and using AI and respecting privacy and ethics really isn't a zero-sum game. Measures like ethical AI, decentralizing data actually offer great potential for organizations. So if we decentralize data, that means we no longer rely on the tech giants, and actually new startups can also train their algorithms and become far more competitive in that sense. It evens out the playing field, so to say. And using AI to hyper-automate processes, and if we do it right, can in fact also make decision-making far more fair and less influenced by biases. So my key takeaway, let's use that intelligence to actually accelerate our digital transformation, and let's make sure it's a leverage and not a liability. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Lizana. Let's bring Jake back so we can have a discussion about how all of this comes together, hyperconnectivity and the role of AI.
Hi, guys.
Hi. So Jake, first one for you. So how does creating enhanced customer experiences through all of the things you just talked about around hyperconnectivity, how does this put the user at the center?
Yeah, look, some of the best brands in the world and the best businesses world, put their consumers at the forefront of their decision making. And I think one of the things around hyperconnectivity, if you kind of take a step back, the kind of beautiful thing about it is that everything that people are creating is built around the kind of fundamental needs, ambitions, emotions, and behavioral triggers that people desire. So I suppose it couldn't play more of a central role at enhancing the customer experience. If you think about things like, what Max alluded to earlier on today, around the metaverse, this is a completely different playing field in terms of where we're moving. But if we look at kind of the fundamentals in terms of how hyperconnectivity can really advance the lives that we live, not only can we now access more information, we can access opportunities that were never once possible before.
Absolutely. And, it sounds like part of the role of hyperconnectivity is really kind of reducing friction, right, in terms of whatever experience, whether that's shopping or something in your home with technology. But is there a point when you can be too, taken care of and when you get too connected? Is there a point of, when it becomes just too much, and what happens then?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And to be fair, it's very valid in the sense that I think, yes, over the past 2 years, I think, majority of regions and demographics have seen rises in, mental illnesses and mental problems, obviously related to how we cope as individuals. And I think, some of that has a kind of systematic link to things like technology. If you think about how connected we are to the world, the amount of information that we can now access, not only to do with our own health, which in some ways makes us kind of hypochondriacs now, in terms of our fitness, how active we are, how comparable we are, but also just thinking about too much. We are immensely connected to almost every STEM kind of hub and spoke approach to how we live. And, yes, there are huge advantages to that. But I think as individuals, I suppose we need training, or future generations certainly need training in terms of how to manage that, how to stop using technology and when to use technology. I think a final point of that, as a negative, is the fact that, our life has kind of been built so immensely around speed that in many ways it kind of risks the former point even more. We don't really make time for those real world moments, holding the real newspaper, having a coffee in the workplace, even seeing loved ones physically. We're getting very, very accustomed, through a world through the lens of connectivity and digital. And I think we as individuals just need to make sure that we control that as our own kind of allowances allow. Okay.
Hey, thanks, Jake. So I have a question from the audience. It's directed at Lisanne from Barbara. So do you have an example of AIs taking over the creative process?
An example, I think there's many. So AI can actually write texts. Here in the Netherlands, a while back, we had a podcast that was written by an AI program. They actually also aired the podcast. And I listened to it. I knew upfront it was written by an AI, so I kind of noticed immediately. It was actually a pretty good text. You could say it was a very conceptual discussion. Another example is art actually created by AI. There's already been a painting that was sold. So that was created by AI. And also, I think a lot of images being changed is something that you see recently. I think of a very cool project that I saw recently from it was actually an artist that wanted to prove that a lot of buildings become more and more very scary houses and very scary environment. And what they did was actually use an AI to change these images of everyday buildings into actually horror images. And they trained the algorithm to look at these buildings for everyday lives and also look at images from horror movies. And they kind of created this merged or blended reality based on that. So I think there are some examples of AI creating things.
Oh, cool. So scary AI, that's interesting. So I have one question for Jake from Matthias. So I'm gonna summarize a bit because it's a really long question, but I think the takeaway is that we're talking about all these new hyperconnectivity things, but if you look at the way we interface with human beings, apps and desktops and the software that's running on it, it still feels like it's lagging behind. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's always room for improvement when it comes to these type of technology and platforms. And I think, 5G connectivity is obviously a good infrastructure to start to look at those improvement benefits. But again, I think it's also, improvisation, through innovation and through imagination in terms of how we should be approaching these things. I know it didn't kind of work through a visual representation, but there's a great reference in the earlier video show reel of even the Apple Watch, the latest series of the Apple Watch now, there's no necessary interface within it, but what it's able to do now, based on your heart rate, if you were to have an accident, it will automatically call the emergency services and give the longitude and latitude ratios of where your accident happened. I mean, these are, next level, connectivity points that 10 years ago, we couldn't even, download an app on our phones. I mean, our wrists are now calling the emergency services. So, yes, there are going to be gaps in technology, as there always are. But I think it's about intuition and, alongside innovation of how we kind of counteract those things.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I thought, what are you going to answer to this question? And that Apple Watch, that was, I think, brilliant. And that made me think, like, for example, autonomous driving, right? Is also sort of a form of how connectivity, self-learning cars, but also from the cloud, suddenly that experience, a car, it's unchanged for maybe 100 years. And now suddenly it's totally different, right? What's your thought on that?
Exactly. And I mean, CES was an amazing kind of, again, release of technology this year. There was some, phenomenal movements in the automotive industry, from customers being able to choose the color of their car, digitally, which is just remarkable, all the way through to, Tesla's latest kind of karaoke updates through simply updating your car's operating system. Companies are now looking at really intuitive ways, to bridge the gap between, human desire and ambitions, along with proven technology. Because the last thing a brand wants to do is produce technology that obviously flaws and doesn't deliver users what they intended to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a question for Lisanna. What do you think about the idea? We're talking about how exponentially things have changed, both from hyperconnectivity standpoint and obviously with AI over the past 5, 10, 50 years. So what do you think about the idea that AI will really kind of take digital technology really out of the two-dimensional form into the place where the environment will now actually be the interface? Is that something that we're moving towards? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. So good question. And I think in order to answer that, maybe we first need to take a step back look at something that feels a bit more tangible to our day-to-day life. So I think the first example of that could be a restaurant playing music based on the preferences of the people that are visiting the restaurant. I think that's something that we can all refer to. But as we keep on innovating with AI, and as we also see the creative power and also the generative power of AI increasing, I really believe that it will be possible to create experiences out of the screen that we're now looking into, indeed this 2D experience. But for example, in our meeting rooms, by showing different kinds of presentations, being able to actually feel and experience a concept that we're trying to explain. I think AI will definitely be able to accelerate that innovation.
So it's just I don't know, it's a hypothetical question, but at what moment in time would I be able to talk to a virtual human being and not even know if it's virtual or a real person?
You are already able to do that. So we already have an example of a conversational AI that's able to call, for example, your hairdresser, make an appointment. So that's already possible. Just the extent in which you can do that, of course, is still a little bit limited. But yeah, we already see that happening. Yeah.
And so, just as a follow-up, for the criticasters amongst us, and I get them, why would we need it?
Why would we need it? So I think we just discussed, right, that we're going to go towards this metaverse. And also the environment that we're looking at now, right? There's so much digital assets that need to be created, so much experiences and basically digital artifacts that we're going to have to create. So I'm not sure if we necessarily need a robot to do the talking for us, but we'll definitely need AI to process, first of all, the data that we're going to create in the upcoming decades. That's only going to increase faster and faster, but also help us create this digital reality by creating assets, but also personalizing assets. Since we are hyper-connected, we know better and better what our behavior history looks like, and we also expect our experience to be adapted based on that in the blink of an eye. That's really where AI will come in and help tremendously to accelerate that.
Yeah, one sort of existential question for Lisanna, and Jake, feel free to also weigh in here, but is AI and is this hyperconnectivity actually at its core making us more human, or gives us the ability to be more human? or even brings out our more human qualities? Or is it pushing us towards a new place where we're sort of lacking that and we're actually relying on AI to kind of fill in for that piece?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lisanna. I mean, look, I mean, from my point of view as an individual, I mean, some of the statistics that we came across throughout this trend report, the fact that, connectivity is saving us on, an average 8 days a year. If we're using those 8 days to do the things that we don't have time to do, like the more human elements of life, in terms of spending time with your children or seeing family that you don't get to see, or to travel or whatever, then yeah, I think it's an immensely exciting opportunity for humans to become more efficient and for humans to become more human. But if we're using those days to become, even more engulfed in technology, then yeah, I think there's probably a negative side to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Really great and really thought-provoking talk, and thank you guys for fielding some of our questions. So we're on to our last trend of the day today, actually. So this is a really important one and a really fun one. So before we get into it, it's called People and the Planet. Like before, we're going to watch a quick clip.
Humanity faces a number of significant challenges, including climate change, rising inequalities between countries and society, and others. New technologies, such as labor market robotization, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things, are driving the fourth industrial revolution.
Turbulent last year and a half.
Brands are under more pressure than ever before to demonstrate a combination of high and low tech solutions to harness the digital revolution in order to advance environmental and societal sustainability. Brands that demonstrate this are valued by newer generations, and given how quickly loyalty is earned and lost among these generations, this is where brands should focus their efforts in order to inspire positive change for some of the world's most pressing issues.
Okay, so this backdrop is a perfect segue into the next talk, which is all about people and planet. So to talk about that, we have our one and only Josephine, who is calling in from Germany today. How you doing, Josephine? Are you there?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, good. How are you doing today?
Cool. I'm doing pretty well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, so I think this is a great time to kind of switch into talking a little bit about, we've talked about tech, we've talked about the metaverse, and now we're going to get a bit more human, talking about humanity, some of the challenges we're facing, and maybe how we can sort of drive change through these technologies that we've just discussed.
Yeah, happy to do so. Thank you very much. So the times we live in right now are extremely exciting because it feels like nothing is a given anymore. Every concept needs to prove its right to exist. Never before have brands been hyped, celebrated, or cancelled so quickly. Let's have a look at the opportunities and the roles brands can play in people's lives in the future. Good brands are a mirror for the consumer. The Meaningful Brand Study from Harvard in 2020 showed that 75% of brands could disappear today and consumers would not miss them. People expect authenticity, honesty, and communication on eye level with brands that reflect their values. So brands need to play an active role in people's lives to become indispensable. Also, purpose-driven companies have a competitive advantage because they don't need to spend millions in paid media to reach the same audience, right? So you can also take the mirror as an image and take it literally. Brand inclusivity has been a definite rise since the death of Victoria's Secret's fashion show in 2019. The end of the fashion show signaled the end of an era in which products designed for supermodels could be construed as inclusive. In the 2 years since, brand inclusivity has gone mainstream. Brands need to help those whose voices are often silenced. Doing this will help initiate a positive change in your communities. It's therefore important that brands are thoughtful when selecting voices, messages, images, and values to represent them. Thoughtfulness will help your brand gain new and retain existing customers. Building brand loyalty is crucial to any company, right? So inclusivity will show your consumer base that you care about them as individuals as well as embrace their differences. Brands are role models too. In the past, people have looked up to governments and institutions for guidance and regulations. But in the rapidly changing digital age, governments can't keep up. This is a great opportunity for brands to step up and be the driver for social change. One specific example, global warming. Or to phrase it differently, the offsetting and removal of carbon dioxide to become carbon neutral. We are still far away from labeling obligations so that consumers can transparently understand how much carbon dioxide was emitted to produce a certain product. Therefore, it is even more important that companies think about their own approach. This is a big chance for brands to lead the way and also take the consumer by the hand. Brands are also the preferred employers. In the US alone, there were 11 million open jobs at the end of last year. Besides COVID playing a big role, this number also reflects a general problem we don't only see in the US. On the one hand, it's about the mismatch between the skills employers want and what job seekers are actually trained to do. This is why globally, the war for talent, and especially for technical talent, has reached new heights. But on the other hand, we also see people's tolerance for what they will put up with in a job has changed during the pandemic. So the pressure for companies to align with the values of their employees increases. At the same time, there are companies everybody wants to work for. Last year, over 1 million people applied for a job at Amazon as part of their career day. The virtual event attracted job seekers from more than 170 countries. According to Forbes, Amazon is not alone here. 9 out of the top 10 employers are tech and IT companies. Amongst them are Samsung, IBM, Microsoft, Dell, and Apple. Is that a coincidence? Well, I don't think so. We have learned from a study conducted by Ernst & Young that 2/3 of Gen Z say that it felt like it was very or extremely important to work for an employer that shared their values and that they prioritize enjoying their work. And how purposeful is working for a company that has the mission to change the world for the better with the help of technology. So to summarize, humanity faces a number of significant challenges, including climate change and the rise of inequalities between and within societies. Brands can play an important role to bring positive change, and the brands that do will survive. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Josephine. I think Max wants to kick it off with a question for you.
Yeah, so Josephine, well, we know each other personally, and we talked about a lot of things. If we talk about diversity, inclusivity, care for the planet. And I know it's something, for you, it's not a thing. It's a part of who you are. But why do you care so much? Not the world, but you.
Why do I care so much? Well, because I think it's about making sure that we don't have to live with these inequalities in the future anymore, that the next generations do have something to celebrate and that they're proud of what we have achieved. And I would be thrilled if my daughter in the future would sit at a management table and it was 50% women and 50% men. I think that this is something it's worth fighting for.
Wow, thank you.
I agree, absolutely. So just sort of a bigger question for you. You know, there might be a perception that you have to choose one or the other, right? Sustainability or kind of, you know, goodness for humanity and also, you know, meeting your bottom line and meeting your business needs. But there's also been, it sounds like, this sort of sea change in terms of perception. And so what would you say to that? You know, how can companies really do both, sort of have their cake and eat it too in terms of, you know, doing good and also doing what's good for their business?
Well, this is what future CEOs need to focus on, right? Balancing economic and ecological goals, because companies that only focus on one will be punished by the consumers. So I think that the phrase doing good, and we all use it, but I think it might be a bit misleading as well. It's not about only doing good, it's also about doing the right thing for both your business and the planet. And for me, that's not really a contradiction.
Okay. I think such a cool question, to be honest, because I thought like, yeah, that's from Anna. So she was looking to some Metaverse stuff and she noticed that all the avatars and the bodies are sort of homogeneous. So everybody looks sort of the same. And I'm not entirely sure if I would call it fat people, but people that are differently built, maybe even have some disabilities. So how would we need to translate this into the metaverse? And would we use AI for this, or rather not, because maybe it would even amplify our bias?
So I think that mostly the community thinks it's a positive thing, that you don't really see, for example, the gender when it comes to the avatars, because people claim that this is actually something good for diversity, right? So that you don't have to take every different or everything with you into the virtual world, right? That you can start building up your new reality and your new personality based on something you want to go for. I think it's also not a one-to-one translation, right? It's about thinking about what do you identify with, and there are apes as avatars. People don't think they're apes, right? It's just something they think it's funny and they want to see for themselves. So I agree, the diversity and inclusion topic for the metaverse and for the internet is still a big thing and still needs to be discussed, but I see more opportunities than challenges, to be honest.
Absolutely. Well, this is such a rich topic and a really great one to end on. I hope it gave everyone a lot to think about. And we are actually at the end now of the event. So Josephine, thank you so much for your time and for having this discussion with us, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. We're at the end. We did it.
We did it.
Nice.
So I so loved it. And I also loved the participation of the audience. So first off, thank you all at home and offices or wherever you are. Thanks so much. Also, I would like to add, today's talk is being recorded and we will send it to you if you registered. So that's a cool thing. Also, we have a 22 trend long read for the coming year with the things we talked about today, but a lot more. So we will send that also straight away to you, so you have some more things that you might wonder and have some questions about. And also, we would like them to maybe even follow us on some places. Or?
Yeah, follow us on social if you're not already. There'll be a lot of great stuff, as Max said, and also where you can find out more about some future talks like this to come. So give us a follow, and thank you all so much for being here today, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one soon.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And before we go, I just want to extend my thanks to Brandon, to Jake, to Lisanne and Josephine, but also the massive team that's behind a day like this, specifically Ibis, but all of you. Much love, and hope to see you next time on another Dept Talks. And for now, enjoy your day.
She called my phone, said, baby boy, I'm sick, when you coming back home? It's been about 7 days, you know me want you. I've been on the road, trying to get this money with my bros. Can you hold it down, girl? I'll be right back for you, yeah. Let me catch a flight on the weekend. I'ma save your life. Give it a medicine when I get home, yeah. Oh, I got time for you, yeah, come on. I can be your doctor, let me operate your body. You need some more love, let me navigate your body, baby. I got the medicine that you want, medicine that you need, medicine that you want, oh, baby. Hold me, oh, 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 oh. Don't delay, I'ma lay you down, won't be playing. Officer, don't you worry, I'm qualified to operate in your body. Slow dancing in slow motion, yeah. Baby, I'm your lover and your doctor. I can be your doctor, let me operate your body. You need some more love, let me navigate your body, baby. I got the medicine that you want, medicine that you need, medicine that you want, baby. Hold me. Let me operate your body. You need some more love, let me navigate your body, baby. The medicine that you want, medicine that you need, medicine that you want, oh, baby. Hold me.
Feel it in the sunrise, even in the nighttime. It's hard to adjust now, 'cause you ain't around, no. Do they treat you real nice? How'd you like a new town? Hard to adjust now, 'cause you ain't around, yeah. thought that I knew you, but your eyes just say screw you. I need a different love, I need a lawless girl. I wanna be free. Dip my feet in the water, but you tell me all the time. I don't mind, I don't really mind, I don't really mind, but you I don't mind, I don't really mind. Say your song, get to know me. It can be so hard to do. It can be so hard to do. I know what you're gonna do. Soon as I depart you, try to win my heart, but don't start love. It's not a game to play. I wanna be free. Dip my feet in the water. Take your time, get to know me. I love to get physical, physical. It's so hard to separate from spiritual, spiritual. It can be so hard to do. It can be so hard to do. But you try to win my heart, but don't start. Love is not a game to play. But you try to win my heart, but don't start. Love is not a game to play. Try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. But you try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. Dip my feet in the water. Try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. You try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. You try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. You try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. Try to win my heart, but don't start. No, love is not a game to play. But you try to win my heart, but don't start.